obviously it takes Khan and I to do it. We are back for a Google Hangout edition of the Turn on the Jets podcast. I am the one and the only Dalbin Osorio, joined by my main man, Connor Rogers. Connor, how's it going?
Good, man. Good. It's good to be back on the old Hangouts again.
That's right. That's right. This works better for Con and I because you guys get to see our gorgeous mugs. And you know, it's been a slow week. McCannahan should probably be fired because he hasn't signed or traded for anybody in 3 days. So we kind of need to get rid of him. I think that's what needs to happen. Did I lose you, Con?
No, I'm on. I'm on.
Okay. No, I was saying that McCannahan probably needs to be fired because he hasn't traded or signed anybody in like a week.
Yeah, the lack of activity is pretty concerning, right?
Yeah, it is. It is, man. It is.
Especially the market that we've become so accustomed to the last few years. The wave 2 and 3 of free agency, the bargain shopping, the
That's
clearance
true.
wrap.
That's true. That's true. No, no. Yeah, no. McCannahan has really spoiled us. No, so I mean, you and Joe touched on last week. You guys touched on it last week. Just the flurry of activity. Revis coming home, Buster Skrine, Cromartie, Marcus Gilchrist, re-signing Willie Colon, re-signing Bilal Powell, finalizing the trade for Brandon Marshall, trading for Ryan Fitzpatrick. It was a very, very hectic week. And now, as the week turns and we start to get closer to the draft, what's now happening is you're seeing teams start to fill out their rosters. And there's still a lot of quality free agents unsigned. But word came out today that the Jets were meeting with Denarius Moore, former wide receiver of the Raiders, that they were bringing in Osio Manura tomorrow. And where they stand now with $12 million in cap space, they still have the opportunity to be flexible and attack some of the holes that they have. And because, I mean, this is a team that as of right now only has 6 draft picks. Out of the remaining free agents that are out there, Khan, who would you target out of the remaining guys that are left that you think could play pivotal roles going forward next season and possibly the year after that?
Yeah, I don't really think there's anyone left that'll play a pivotal role. Like you said, maybe there will be a couple, a couple niche players, I think. The Umanura visit today is coming up. Interesting. Is he in today? He wasn't today, correct?
He's gonna be in tomorrow. Actually, he's gonna be in on Thursday.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting. I don't think fans should get caught up in the name, which is kind of happening already. I see people getting really excited, and I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but this is not the guy that was, a lights out kind of pass rusher for the Giants. But it's not to take away from him because he could still have a role as a situational rusher off the edge. And I think he brings something that the Jets don't really have, and that's a little bit more burst off the snap, off the edge. Maybe a little more effective than Babin at least.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the big thing. And I've always wondered. He's my brother's a Giants fan, and he always talked about OC and just his ability off the edge. And I always wondered how he would look under Rex Ryan here. And I mean now if he signs here, he'd be playing under Bowles. I think he can give you more than Babin in a situational role. I wonder if that's what he's looking for, because there's a guy who, like you said, he wasn't the same guy that he was in New York. Like he's a very different guy now. He's older. He's lost a bit of a step. But as a guy, as an upgrade over Babin, I think he'd be perfect. It just all depends on the cap figures. Denarius Moore is another guy who they mentioned that the Jets are interested in, and now we've seen, even though they traded for Brandon Marshall, even though they have Eric Decker and Jeremy Curley, they were in on Cecil Shorts, and now they're in on Denarius Moore. And that goes to show you that McCannahan's not comfortable with the depth on this team. And somebody jokingly had said on Twitter earlier that the Jets should cut everybody that has ties to Idzik. And while that's kind of ludicrous, as he drafted Sheldon Richardson and traded for Chris Ivory and signed Eric Decker, the reality is that signing Denarius Moore doesn't bode well for a guy like Shaq Evans, who was drafted by Idzik, a guy like Quincy, who was drafted by Idzik, a guy like Greg Salas, who was acquired by Idzik. These are guys who are fringe guys right now, and now the more talent you add, I think that pushes the chances of them not making the team higher and higher. What do you think about that? What do you think about Denarius Moore?
Yeah, I'm actually a big fan. I was kind of pushing for this, for them to trade. What was it? It was last year. I was pushing for them to trade a 4th rounder for him. So, I mean, and his skill set, I still value it just the same way. Obviously, you don't trade him now because the Raiders lost all the leverage there because they don't play the guy. And I don't really understand it. I don't know him personally, so it's hard for me to say and I don't know people in the league that know him personally, so I don't know if it's something with him. But this is a guy that was averaging, 16 to 18 yards a catch his first couple of seasons,
Right.
and starting to tail down into the 14s, which isn't bad, but it's just that he's not on the field. And when you look at Carr, he's got a big arm, so you have to wonder, why couldn't this guy get on the field last year? Is it the coaching staff? Did he fall off? And look at it like this. He's a UFA right now. If the Jets sign him, it's going to be on a veteran minimum deal. The worst case scenario, he doesn't make the team. The best case scenario, you have Denarius Moore back. He's a great deep threat, fourth wide receiving option, maybe third in some instances, and he could return kicks and punts with his speed.
Yeah, I mean, and Joe tweeted out the stats earlier today, but over the 2012-2013 season, Moore had 97 catches, 1,436 yards, 12 touchdowns, and averaged almost 15 yards per catch. And I think those are numbers those are really, really good numbers. And you're talking about a guy who's still young. He can still develop. And it's insurance for receivers who have been banged up in Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall. So I think if you add a guy like that, it's a really good move. And yeah, you were definitely pushing for them to trade for him last year, and now you don't have to give up an asset to get him. So I think that's something that you should do. And I think McCannahan realizes, not only with that, but also with the inquiry about OC. They also brought in the linebacker from the Packers today for a visit, the offensive lineman from the Giants. They're trying to build the depth, and they don't want to be doomed if one of their starters goes down. And I think that's a really, really big plus so far from McCannahan, despite the fact that this week he's been a little quiet, despite that. But we can turn our attention now to the draft because that's our specialty and that's what we do. But I had an article yesterday just talking about some trades that I think the Jets should look into making on draft day. And the two that got the most traction were trading with Cleveland for the 12th and the 19th pick, and trading with New Orleans for the 13th and the 31st. Out of those two offers, for me, the Cleveland offer is the more attractive one because you get two picks that are only separated by 7 choices, and it allows you to target 2 impact guys. What I want to know from you is, what do you think in regards to, let's say they do make a move with Cleveland and that's the move they make, who can they realistically target at 12 and at 19 that would be potential impact guys, and who would you like to see them target?
Yeah, I mean, if you could somehow come away with both of those picks, I mean, that's a steal right there. And it obviously would work out for both sides because Cleveland's only making that trade if Marcus Mariota's on the board for them, and they're a desperate franchise right now. They're probably as desperate as a franchise could be in this league, and they need a guy that could really turn things around. As crazy as it sounds, not even just his skill level, but who he is off the field and what he represents, and something to be excited about for the team. So you might be able to come away with those picks, and if you do, you just go BPA on both sides. Obviously, you're going to take an offensive lineman there on one of the picks. Obviously, me and you are hoping a guy like Lyle Collins falls right into their lap if that's the scenario. I take him at 12. I think you agree. You take him at 12. You don't wait till 19 because then you're probably looking at the Eric Flowers of the world and guys that do have big question marks if they can play tackle. And I know another name that people want is Brandon Scherf. I don't see him as a tackle at the next level. The footwork is not there. The Maryland tape really exposed that. And so I would go probably at the 19 range, you can go wide receiver, like a guy like Devontae Parker. There's a lot of different options. So, I mean, it's just best player available to me. I could name off names all night with the way I've been studying the draft, but it's just a matter of, you throw them at me and I'll give you my opinion. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I agree with you. I think if you do trade back with Cleveland, because and Cleveland's the one that I think is going to gain the most traction, just because they have the 2 first-round picks from the trade last year with Buffalo, which, again, looking back at it, you talk about the Bills traded up all the way up to number 4 to draft Sammy Watkins, and now their offense, I mean, now you look at it with the pieces that they've added around this, Sammy Watkins is probably going to have a really good chance to flourish. But last year it didn't seem like a really, really good trade. But if you trade back to 12 and 19, I agree with you. I think you can take Collins at 12. I think at 19 you can possibly still get an edge rusher, one of the ones that drops. Like, I'm not as high on Shane Ray as like a lot of people are, but there's a chance that he may drop to that 15 to 19 range. And if you walk out of this draft with Lyle Collins and Shane Ray, or Lyle Collins and Gregory, then suddenly you're walking away with in my opinion, 2 of the top 30 players in this draft. and guys that are going to be stalwarts on your team going forward. I think Collins is going to be a Pro Bowl left guard or left tackle for the next 10 years. He's that good. And if you get Gregory or Ray, then you hope that Bowles can kind of scheme around their deficiencies. If they do the one with New Orleans where you fall back to 13 and 31, at 13 you can still take Collins, and at 31 you could theoretically take a receiver like Jalen Strong if he falls. I mean, mock drafts have him going in the mid rounds. You could even take another corner if Marcus Peters dropped to 31. You could theoretically take him there too. And now you're really dealing from a position of strength because you have Revis, Cromartie, Scrine, Peters, Milner, McDougal, and I don't think there's a team in the NFL that has 6 corners that are that talented. And I haven't seen it because that's a very, very deep secondary. So I mean that's an option as well. I know we've spoken about Peters, and spoken about just on talent alone, he's good enough to go in the top 10. But because of the character concerns like that, that's an issue too. Who's another guy? And this has gotten a lot of traction over the last week. You're looking at, they've been mentioning Todd Gurley and Melvin Gordon as consideration at 6, or if the Jets stay in the first round. What are your ideas on running back being taken with the Jets' first round pick? Because I'm a little iffy on that.
Yeah, I don't really understand the mocks at all. It's really mind-boggling having them take a guy like Gurley at 6. Number one, you're going to be able to get him beyond 6. This is a guy coming off an ACL tear. He's a running back. You don't take running backs in the top 10. I mean, I'm not calling him Kurt Richardson again, but you don't take the risk factor because these guys have such a short, shelf life in the NFL, and you don't risk that. It doesn't make any sense. So I don't really know what those mocks are thinking. Yeah, they're going to take a running back in this draft, and yeah, it's probably going to be with a pretty high asset, like a round 2 or 3 pick on a guy that they think is the future at running back. Because, yeah, I'm sure they would love to have Chris Ivory or Bilal Powell back after this year, but there's no guarantees with that. And you also don't know if they're going to be, if they decline, if they'll be healthy, if a guy like Powell who hasn't had the chance takes the next step. If a guy like Ivory who's had the chance can stay healthy over a full season. And he's kind of one-dimensional. He's a real power back, a very good one at that, one of the better ones in the league. But they need a pass catcher, especially if it's going to be a team that's probably playing with a young quarterback. They need a security blanket, and they need a guy that can make plays in the flats. I think the targets it's pretty obvious. They're going to be looking at a guy like maybe Duke Johnson that can catch a lot of passes, make a play on his own, and take it to the house. You have a guy like Jay Ajayi, who is probably the most complete back in this class. Definitely worth taking in the top 40 because he can do everything. You teach a guy how to pass protect, and you have a guy that never has to come off the field. That's the most important thing. I'm staying away from the names like Gurley and Gordon. Number one, I think Gordon's great, but he's going to be overdrafted. Everyone I've talked to says, this is scouts, this is front office people, this is former players. They're saying that he's not going to make it out of the first round. There's just no possible way. The teams love him. They think he has unique, elite traits, and I totally understand that. But the bottom line is, it's a luxury pick. You don't take a running back at the first round. You build the line. You take a lot of premium players, premium talent at positions that you especially in this class, where there's probably about 12 guys that'll get this year. Is one of the weight on it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Duke Johnson is probably going to be the target. I'm higher on Gurley. It's just the only issue with him is obviously coming back from the ACL injury. But I mean, you touched on this a couple weeks ago. ACL injuries are now becoming as common as sprained wrists, so you kind of don't worry as much as you used to. I look at and you mentioned the high, and I look at him and he reminds me of LaShawn McCoy. And I agree with you. I think if you teach him how to pass protect, he never has to come off the field, never. And I think the Bills are gonna. I mean, I like the move for the Bills. I did like them trading Alonzo for McCoy, but I think the Bills are going to realize that they could have gotten a back that's going to give them similar production to LaShawn McCoy in rounds 2 and round 3. And I think that's going to be frustrating for a lot of teams who overdraft a guy like Melvin Gordon, who overdraft a guy like Todd Gurley. A team like Seattle can absolutely draft Todd Gurley. Well, the Saints now, because now they have Seattle's first-round pick. The Saints could draft a guy like Todd Gurley and have him sit behind C.J. Spiller and Mark Ingram. Like, they would have that luxury to do that because they're picking at the end of round 1, and he's a guy who you don't necessarily have to play right away. But a team like the Jets taking a running back at 6 or even at 12 or 19, with as many holes as they have, I'd be a little concerned about that. One of the names that's starting to gain traction for a day 2 or day 3 target for the Jets is Jamison Crowder. And I know you're really, really high on Crowder, as just in terms of like a burner and just his potential at the next level. So can you talk a little bit more about just if he is targeted by the Jets in the 2nd or 3rd round, where do you think he fits? Do you think he's a 3rd round prospect, 4th round prospect? What's your thoughts on Crowder?
Yeah, I actually have a 4th round grade on Crowder. You know what it is? He was a guy that when I first turned on the tape and I liked what he did. Right away, I thought Jeremy Curley. I'm like, this is a guy that finds a soft spot in the zone. He seemed to have, pretty good hands. He's not explosive. And the weird thing was, Duke tries to force him the ball downfield just because they don't have a lot of playmakers. And, TCU did like to use Curley as an explosive weapon, but that's in college. These guys they don't have the speed. They're more quick than fast. And at the next level, those are the guys that like to work in traffic underneath and, find the seam in the zone. And I do like Crowder. But the bottom line is he's going to be limited, and especially for this team that really has one of the better slot weapons, on a reasonable deal in Curley, I think he's a guy that you probably would look at more of a luxury, and there's probably better options, especially when you need a bigger target that can get the ball in the red zone at wide receiver. I think that's where they should look.
Okay. All right, and let's switch back. Let's go back to the offensive lineman because I know you and I we shared similar grades on Collins. We're both iffy on Scherf's potential as a left tackle at the next level. Eric Flowers, I'm a little iffy on. He has a lot of questions that I'd be hesitant to draft him as well. What day 2 and day 3 offensive linemen? Let's say the Jets choose to stand pat at 6 and they take an edge rusher, whether it's Fowler or Beasley. Let's say they take one of those guys. That means that they're going to look to fill that other guard spot in the 2nd or 3rd round. Who are the guys that you're looking at as potential targets in that round, the 2nd and the 3rd?
Yeah, you're saying if the Jets do take edge rusher,
right?
Correct?
If they stay at 6 and take an edge rusher.
Yeah, I think it's going to be probably the best skill player available. I'm seeing a lot of people kind of force the issue with the offensive line in the 2nd round, but you'd have to have somebody slide really to take over that role. I think the problem with that is the talent it doesn't match. It's not right there. I mean, unless you have, I don't really know who would fall. Maybe Clemmings, probably not. Maybe Pete.
What about AJ? What about AJ Kahn from South Carolina? I think he's a guy that I look at.
Yes, I really like Kahn. The only reason I don't know if the Jets would take him is because he's a pure drive blocker, and I know this is what Gailey previously did. I don't know if he would like to do it going forward. He likes to run the zone blocking scheme. He just gets his guards out in space with the spread offense. They run a lot out of shotgun. That's not Kahn's game. He could be a dominant power. Look at it like this. He's a Rex Ryan guard.
He is, yeah.
It's going to drive straight forward, downfield. You're not really going to have him as a zone blocker, though. So we'll have to see. But the thing is, you make a good point. He's going to be the best line talent on the board probably when the Jets pick then. So, what route do they go? Do they take him, or do they build him into their offense, or do they pass on him and pass on probably what's going to be premium guard talent right in the 37th pick?
Yeah, no, and I mean I'm high on Kahn. I have Kahn in my top 30. I think he's, you nailed it on the head. I think he's a premium talent, but he's very much a Rex Ryan type of offensive lineman, and so you wonder if does he fit the scheme, or do the Jets just take him because he's the best player available? I think that's going to be interesting to watch. Another position that, and I touched on this in my article too, is if the Jets decide to not address the blocking tight end issue that they've had for years, I think that they're going to have to target a tight end in the draft, and it's going to have to be a guy who is strictly a blocking tight end. I mentioned Jesse James from Penn State as a potential target in the 5th and 6th round. What other tight ends do you think would fit the mold that they're looking for to pair with Jace that would in turn make the offense that much better?
Yeah, this is kind of interesting because they're going to, it's a matter of what they want to do. They do need a guy that could block, but I don't think that, like I said, they might be running a spread offense with a lot of zone blocking scheme, and then you might not really use the big tight ends like Jermaine Gresham types, for instance. So you might want a second move tight end in case Amaro goes down with an injury, or you just need a second body in there. Obviously a guy like Max Williams in the back end of the first, early second is the premium talent. There's guys like Clive Walford out of Miami, who's probably a 3rd or 4th round type. Really nothing special, but can catch the ball, can move a little bit downfield. And then you have a lot of just after that, it's very underwhelming. Harriman from Ohio State, a guy that could do a little blocking and catching, nothing special. The kid from Penn State,
Yeah.
6'7", but I watch Penn State every week. Just never really clicked for him. I don't know. And Hackenberg's a good quarterback, so the bottom line is you'd like him to take the next step of college, and he didn't. So is he going to take the next step in the NFL? You only find out by using a day 3 pick. You're not really going to use a premium asset on a guy like that. But outside of that, there's just not a lot of talent at tight end. The most intriguing name is probably Gene Sifrin from UMass. This is a guy that's 28 years old, but is playing football very late. Dominant athlete. Not a blocker. He's huge. He's probably about 6 feet 6 inches. Can go up and get the ball, make spectacular catches. But definitely a really intriguing name to keep an eye on. The two guys, can he keep developing? Number one. Number two, his age. How high a pick are you going to use on a guy like that?
Right.
But that's really the most interesting name, I think, in the tight end group.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, tight end is a weird group because other than Max Williams, there's not any guys that are potential game changers. And it's interesting because last year you had Jace, you had Ebron, you had CJ, you had Safarian Jenkins, who are four. Who I think the jury's still going to be out on those guys, but they're four very good tight. I think they have the chance to be very good tight ends. Whereas this year it's Max Williams, and there's a big separation between him and the rest. Another position of need that I think the Jets should target, and I mentioned this in my article too, was inside linebacker because they brought back David Harris. A lot of people were complaining because they felt that McCannagan overpaid because he didn't want Harris to follow Rex to Buffalo. I think that that's entirely accurate, but I do think that they couldn't afford to lose him and then breaking in all these new starters on defense. So I think they brought him back. Inside linebacker, a guy that I'm looking at is James from Michigan State, Taiwan James from Michigan State. I feel like he's David Harris's clone. Like he's a thumper. He's incredibly good against the run. So he's a guy that I would look at. I also like Kendricks from UCLA, but I think you can get him trading back. But I don't think you take him at 6. And I know last year you and I were both kind of pushing for them to take C.J. Mosley from Alabama because we thought that he could fit really well in that defense. What other inside linebackers can you see the Jets targeting, whether if they trade back or in the second and third round, guys that – because Harris is getting a little long in the tooth, and Davis, there's still questions about how effective he's going to be. What other inside linebackers do you see other than Taiwan James from Michigan State?
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see if Bowles goes out and gets a guy like he had Darrell Washington in 2013 before he got suspended. This is a guy that's about 6'2", 230 pounds, can really move. I think the biggest comp to that would be Quan Alexander from LSU. The question is, do you play a guy that weighs 230 on the inside? Bowles probably will because he'll load the line up. He puts safeties in the box. He likes those light inside linebackers. So Quan Alexander from LSU is definitely a name to keep an eye on. Finds his way through the blocks, even at playing lightweight, pretty fast. Can probably cover the flats, which is what at the next level, which is what you're looking for. He's done a lot of it in college. He's just all over the field. And then the most interesting name I think obviously is Shaq Thompson, whose value I've heard is soaring downward, which is very interesting. He's a guy that if somehow, and I've heard it is possible, falls into the second round, you take him as a chess piece and put him in Bowles' defense right away.
Well, and that's interesting because Shaq Thompson, I know you and I both have him easily in our top 30. You're talking about a guy who, as recently as a month ago, was being talked about as a potential top 10 pick. So to hear that he may fall all the way out of the first round, that's interesting. I think you take if Shaq Thompson's on the board at 37, you take him and don't look back and just let Bowles figure out how to play him because I think you're talking about a guy who is one of the better linebackers and he might be after Dante Fowler might be the most pro-ready linebacker in this draft. So to get him in the second round is incredible value. Let's move to the safeties now because they signed Marcus Gilchrist. They have Calvin Pryor coming back. They have Antonio Allen, Jaquan Jarrett. One of the guys that I've looked at is Cody Pruitt. I think he's a really good prospect as a safety, and he's a guy that may be available in round 3. Landon Collins is the consensus number 1 safety in the draft, but I highly doubt the Jets take off safety in the first after signing Gilchrist and taking Pryor last year. other than Pruitt, what other safeties do you see that the Jets may take with either if they trade back or if target in the second or the third round?
Yeah, I mean, the most interesting name to me, I think, is a guy that doesn't even play safety right now, and that's Quentin Rollins in Miami, Ohio. I think he has the great ability to be a true roaming free safety. This is a guy that only played college football for 1 year as he played basketball for the other 4. I love the way he plays the ball. Great hands, can just, really good at going up and getting the interception. Not the best overall technique at cornerback right now, and that's what's going to happen when the guy's only been playing the position at a high level for 1 year. So I'd really like to see him make the move to free safety.
Okay.
His value is right in the second or third round. The third round probably even getting a steal for a guy with that much upside. So I mean, when you're looking to get the best overall.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think you're going to see Bowles target a lot of guys who can possibly play different positions, who can possibly play, like if you look at him targeting cornerbacks, I think you're going to see him targeting a cornerback who can also play safety. Look at Gilchrist. They went after Gilchrist, and Gilchrist last year played at free safety, strong safety, and slot corner. You look at Rivas and Cromartie are going to be on the outside I'd say 99 to 100% of the time. So you go and get a guy in Scrine who can also play outside, but he can also play in the slot. You mentioned a good point when the article came out today about them trading D. Milner. Milner can cover tight ends. He did this. He covered Tyler Eifert in the national championship game really well. And so you're looking at an opportunity for him to do that, a lot more of that. He can cover in the slot. He can play outside. The secondary last year was so bad that it's always weird to see like Jet fans kind of come out and say, yeah, no, let's gut the position of strength, because now the secondary is a position of strength and you want to keep that. You don't want to gut that and then suddenly, because D. Milner is an injury away from being your slot corner or your starting outside corner. That's just the reality. And so you'd rather have that as a strength than have it turn into a position of weakness, because it's arguably that's what doomed the Jets last year. Aside from Geno Smith and his growing pains, the fact that they could not cover anybody in the secondary, that's a problem. This year, knock on wood, that's not going to be a problem. They signed the best cornerback in football. They signed a guy in Cromartie. They signed another guy in Scrine, and they got Gilchrist. So the hope is that that's not a problem. The defensive line is probably going to remain intact. I mean, they lost Kendrick Ellis today to the Giants, which probably puts more of an impetus on them bringing back Lejar Douzable. And I had mentioned C.J. Mosley as a free agent target. In the draft, any defensive ends, because if they draft Fowler or Beasley, it's my assumption that either one of them is playing outside linebacker. So any other defensive lineman that you can see them taking either late in round 1 with a trade back, or maybe even a sleeper in the 5th or 6th round that you think could contribute for the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, this is a group that I've only really studied the top 5 to 8 guys, and those guys are probably going to be gone when the Jets look for D-line depth.
Okay.
Obviously, though, they did bring on Ronald Talley. He'll be some depth across the line if he can make the team. I'm sure they'd like to bring back Douzable. But, like you said, the question is, they would probably be a trade-back scenario. I don't think they take a guy like Eddie Goldman, Malcolm Brown, Danny Shelton will be off the board. Those are premier defensive lineman prospects in this. Obviously, Leonard Williams, probably the best player in the draft. Mm-hmm. But I think the Jets know their strengths lie there, and I don't think this group is incredibly deep in this draft where, you definitely will be looking for some premier talent in round 3. One guy that you never know if they trade back and they really need a guy that can really stuff the gaps, a 2-gap player, Carl Davis from Iowa. I really like what I've seen out of him.
Yeah,
I think he probably gets overdrafted, though. I think he'll go in the middle of round 1. And don't get me wrong, I think he'll be a really good player at the next level, but the Jets won't be in the business to take a D lineman around then. They'd be looking for value probably towards round 3 or 4 at the earliest, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that last year that's clearly the most talented group for the Jets, or I mean, it was heading into this offseason because you have Wilkerson, you have Richardson, you have Harrison. If Coples is going to play more on the line, then suddenly you add him. If you add him and you're in free agency, so suddenly you're four pass rushers deep. And it's a lot of talent on that defensive line. The Jets defense this year has the chance to be one of the better defenses in the league. I mean, it's all contingent on health, but you're talking about a team that should they, and again, today is March 17th, right? March 18th. Today's March 18th, so the draft is in approximately 6 weeks. Who do the Jets take at 6 right now? If you're making the call and you're on the clock, who are the Jets taking at 6?
I do have a gut feeling, just by what Bowles wants to do, that it would be Dante Fowler or Bud Dupree. I don't know if Fowler makes it that far. I actually don't see them taking a guy like Beasley or Shane Ray. But you never know. It's just that Bowles has never had a guy like either of them in his defenses in the past. So I think he knows he could survive without it and doesn't really rely on a speedy edge rusher like that on a consistent basis where he used the 6th overall pick. I do think all the offensive linemen are completely in play. I know a lot of people are saying 6 is too early, but guess what? I think McCagnon will want to, he's looking at the cap next year. He's looking at the age of his line. He's looking at the decline of this line. It has to get done. There's no, there's no way you could surpass it. There weren't a lot of options in free agency. I'm really surprised that Joe Barksdale is still out there. Really, one of the better right tackles in the league. I would be shocked if the Rams don't make it a priority to bring him back. But overall, the names like Lyle Collins of the world are going to be top targets. If they trade back completely, then you have guys like Eric Flowers, Andre Street, it wouldn't shock me if Shirk is one of the guys. I think he's only a guard, but he's a really good one. There's nothing wrong with plugging in a really good guard on your line.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, for me, yeah, I made this point on Twitter before. I think that them signing James Carpenter, for me, I thought that it took them away from taking an offensive lineman at 6. However, if they take Collins at 6, then suddenly you're going Brick, Carpenter, Mangold, Collins, and Giacomini, and that's a very, very strong offensive line, right? If you go Fowler, then suddenly you go Wilkerson, Richardson, Harrison up front, Fowler, Coples, Davis, Harris, Cromartie, Revis, Gilchrist, and Pryor. That's a phenomenal defense. And that's a defense that has a chance to really help out that offense, which the offense is better. Let's not be mistaken. Like the addition of Brandon Marshall, another year for Jason Morrow. You add Carpenter. Carpenter is an improvement on, he improves the offensive line. But that defense has a chance to reach historic levels. And Bills fans can attest to the fact that Ryan Fitzpatrick is actually one of the more talented. He put up numbers in Shangha's system, and there's a chance that he may be the starter. He may end up beating out Geno Smith. So there's a chance for the Jets to grab either somebody who improves the offense or improves the defense. That's a legit opportunity. And whether it's Collins, Fowler, I want Beasley selfishly because the Jets haven't had an edge rusher like him, but I think the odds of them taking him, I think you're right. I think Fowler is going to be the pick, barring a trade back. Now, if they trade back, then I think they take Collins and an edge rusher at 12 and 19, and I think you suddenly added 2 impact players. But those are options, and the Jets have a chance to really improve their team. We are at the 40-minute mark, so we have 5 minutes to spare. Let's wrap up. Did you get any questions on Twitter that we should probably get to right now?
No, I think some people were having problems with the links tonight, so
Okay.
It's kind of just a in-between week. We'll be back on Blog Talk Radio next week, and everything will be up running smooth again. That's been going really well, but obviously we had some problems with Blog Talk Radio tonight. They tried to cut out our episodes.
They did. They froze and they shut it down. I received a text message saying I can't hear you, which was actually pretty funny.
Yeah, it just cut out on me. But just to wrap it up, this is a good week if there was ever going to be one for us to be down.
That's true.
Because there's just not a lot going on right now. It's wave 2 and 3 of free agency. We're kind of in that eye of the storm, I like to call it. Mm-hmm. We got hit with a big wave of free agency, and the Jets made the most noise and made the most of it. So it's been really exciting. The draft will be just as exciting. I expect something crazy to happen because
Oh yeah.
Now it's starting to look like the Redskins are guaranteed Marcus Mariota. So if Titans, it's going to get real interesting. And Jets fans should really hope he slides to 6. Not to take Marcus Mariota, but to get as many picks as possible from the Browns, Eagles, Chargers, Saints, whoever wants him. Come make your offers. The Jets need to load up on draft picks. Like you said, shore up the line. Take an edge rusher. Wide receiver is not even out of question. You have Brandon Marshall, who's into his 30s now. Still a really good player, but you're always looking ahead. You always have to be like how the Seahawks and the Patriots, they're always drafting even at positions that they're loaded up on because you want the next man up. Yeah. And maybe if the Jets listen to that strategy, we'll end up with our boy Marcus Peters, but we won't.
That's right. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I agree with you 100%. I think that's the hope. You look at the AFC East has gotten substantially stronger, while New England has gotten weaker. And every year we hear this. Every year we hear that this is the year that the Pats are going to be dethroned. And until Brady and Belichick are gone, that's probably not the case. But Rex and the Bills and the Dolphins and what McCannagan has done with the Jets, they've made it interesting. They've made it a conversation now. An article came out from Mike Freeman where he said that Rex guaranteed that this was going to be the year he dethroned the Patriots. And I read the article, and that wasn't what he said at all. But Rex knows that in order to have a shot at this, he needs to get the quarterback position solidified, right? Same thing with McCannagan. The Jets are only going to have a shot if they get the quarterback position solidified. And with the Dolphins, they have the better quarterback, but they have holes around them. So it's going to be interesting what the AFC East teams do over the next 5 weeks to bridge that gap between them and New England, because New England is still the cream of the crop, regardless if they lost Browner, regardless if they lost Revis. They still have Brady. And they are still and they added Jamal Shear. They still are the cream of the crop, and it's going to be interesting to see what the teams do over the next couple of weeks. But it's been off to a really good start. Rex got the ball rolling by trading Kiko Alonso. Tannenbaum then came and cut Wallace and Hartline. I know you didn't like them trading Kiko. I know you did not like them trading Kiko.
The dumbest trade. I'm telling you, man. If Kiko's healthy, man.
Oh, it's a game-changing move for Philly. I said this then. I know a Bills fan who almost fainted in Dunkin' Donuts when the trade happened. So I get it. I do. But I think for right now it works. I think for right now.
Hey, if McCoy can get back to his form, the Bills, they need a guy like that. There's no denying that. I just have to see it first. All I can say is the AFC East is going to be wild this year. It'll be, hopefully everyone stays healthy and. Good luck running the ball.
Good luck running the ball, yeah.
That's all I can say. When you got to, they might have, now, Will Fork's gone. He's a little bit on the decline. But 3 of the best nose tackles in football are in the AFC East with Damon Harrison, Marcel Darius, and Ndamukong Suh.
Yep.
And, good luck. It's going to be, we'll dive fully into that, though. That's for another week. Right now, we're all off-season, all draft.
That's right.
Yeah, it's going to be a long one.
So thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Google Hangout edition of the Turn on the Jets podcast. We will be back next week on Blog Talk Radio. You got to see Khan and my handsome face today, so that should have made your day. That probably made your Wednesday. But we will talk to you guys soon. Keep coming to us on Twitter with all your questions. We appreciate the interactions. Shout out to Buffalo. You made the tournament. I picked them to make it to the Sweet 16. And, just keep following us. Con and I will keep pumping out the draft content. Bob and all the new guys have been pumping it out, too. And stay with us.
And go Albany.
There you go. All right.